Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things magic, flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel.
2023.
Get out of here, we're done with you, it's over.
God, you were a lot. You were a lot 2023. Have you had a good year?
I think I've had a great year. It's a year that's gone by very, very, very quickly. When I think about the fact that I'm already looking where to move to for next, because my contract runs out in February, which if you're a person who's moved recently, you need to give yourself more than a month, which I haven't really done. But yeah, I've been in the place for a year. If that's how I bookmark the year, it's the year of Brixton. A lot's happened, but God, it's gone quickly.
Yeah. It's the first year that I've been on my boat.
Yeah, true.
Literally moved in January the 5th.
The year of boat and Brixton.
The B
year. So we're into C year next year. We get to be absolute cunts.
Oh, God. All right. Well, it's year in review. Come on. Every podcast you've been listening to is now in their year of review. Grim Tutor.
Yeah, no, I ran right. So
sorry, Nathan's got a copy, a full like a borderless. No, an extended art copy.
Do you know what's funny? I literally only just listened to this episode recently where we're talking about extended arts, the showcases, and we literally every other sentence we're just like stretch, full, alternate, whatever.
It's not. It can't be full art because it's got the text.
Yeah, exactly. It's
and also when people say old border, they're not borders; they are frames.
You did this. I've just listened to this conversation in that episode. We don't need to do this.
Sorry,
again.
Nathan's got a Grim Tutor and it completely distracted me.
Yeah, it distracted me. It was in a random pile of chaff, and we're like. I was watching this I was reading a Reddit thread the other day of where someone went, "Oh, I just happened to find 10 more rat colonies, so now I've got actually too many instead of not enough." Because he has the secret lair rat colony in his rat colony deck. When people are like, don't fucking come at me with your, I just stumbled across a group of 10 individual secret lair cards in your piles of cards. If you want to flex, just fucking flex. But, genuinely, I bought too many cards over the space of 2 months. Didn't have any time to look and put them into decks. I know what deck I want to put this in. I knew what deck it was supposed to go into. Ran out of time, tidying up, so chucked everything together in a box, and then randomly went through a round of box of cards that were squirreled away somewhere and went, oh, there's a bunch of really good stuff. There's a Verdant Catacombs that I bought to replace a proxy version. Things like that. And you're like, maybe I have. Maybe there is too much magic going on in my life right now.
The 4 cards in my collection, they've been in decks before, but they haven't been in a deck maybe in the past year. So just to kind of tie it even loosely back to the year review, the 4 cards in my collection where I'm like, really, I can't just have them not played. They're too much. Is Emrakul, Promised End, a foil, Ulamog, Infinite Gaia.
Of course.
And a Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, the OG one.
Yeah. Is it foily or Ulamog?
Because I pulled it from an Ultimate Masters pack. It was the foil of that pack.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
oh wow!
So it was like God pack, right? And then I've also got a third, Great Henge.
Yeah. You've got to put that. You can't not play Great Henge.
There's a Great Henge in my Tovolar deck because werewolves need all the fucking help they can get. The amount of gas in that deck, except for the werewolves, is insane.
Is it kind of like your Xyrus of where every card was a heater, even if it didn't need to be a heater?
Yeah, but Xyrus is good, whereas werewolves are bad. And oh god, where's the other Great Henge in? Oh, Ziatora.
Yeah.
And I've just got a third one that doesn't have a home yet. Anyway, 2023.
Idea for weird flex, but okay.
I pulled one.
I wasn't. I'm not.
I got gifted
criticism.
one, and I bought one.
Yeah, I mean, I got gifted an Urza's Saga in my Secret Santa deck this year, and I was very happy about it because it's a card I would refuse. Because every time anyone played it, I was like, all right, weird flex, but okay. Because no one's ever playing it for genuine reasons. Even in the deck I've got, which is Saga, the too many names that came out. Namia, the Saga Absan commander.
Yes.
In that deck, it makes sense because you get the trigger, but because it's 0 mana cost, it's not dealing any damage to anyone. But even in that deck, I'm like, all right, weird flex. It's such a ridiculous card to put into decks. But anyway,
do you want to know what sets are released this year?
You asking me or the audience? Because I've got the exact same list that you've got in front of me.
Well, who's going to read?
Well, I cut the arena one. So
talk to me about what sets were released this year.
Okay, cool. So we started the year with a remastered set, Dominaria Remastered. I counted this because it's kind of interesting that we're kind of doing. I like these remastered sets. I'd like to talk about that kind of in isolation a little bit later. But that's January 13th. A month later, Phyrexia All Will Be One dropped on February 10th. Only 2 months later, or 2 months and a bit, March of the Machine dropped in April the 21st. March of the Machine Aftermath happened May 12th. The Lord of the Rings set, Tales of Middle-earth, happened in June 23rd. That's 3 months of, like, technically premiere release sets. Or at least standard release sets, because March of the Machine's Aftermath was essentially still a normal set that you could play in standard. So yeah, it was April, May, then June. Then Commander's Masters came out on August 4th. I literally just have a comment saying, did this exist? Question mark. I forgot.
Wait, which one?
The Commander's Masters. This is the one that had the Liliana on the, or the Gisa on the front of it. And it was the pop art, version.
Yeah.
Or was that pop art? That was also Dominaria United, but they reused that pop arty kind of style form. Then Wilds of Eldraine drops in September the 8th. A month later, the MTG Doctor... I don't know why I keep saying MTG. The Doctor Who Commander decks dropped. Then the Lord of the Rings holiday release came in November 3rd. And then finally, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, November 17th. And that was only 2 months after Wilds of Eldraine. We had Wilds of Eldraine September 8th, and then Lost Caverns of Ixalan November 17th, which is a questionable gap. And then the same thing for Phyrexia All Will Be One, February 10th, and then only 2 months later, March of the Machine, April 21st. I think this is indicative of why the year's gone by so quickly.
Because they're just one after the other.
Literally, there's just no... Because if you think about how they do spoiler seasons, it's usually about 2 weeks. Well, it's way earlier now. It's like, a month to 6 weeks, maybe even half a year ahead of time you'll get your first cards. You are literally going set. You've got a month to play it before you go to spoiler season of the new set, and then a month to play it before you go to spoiler season of the new set. So it's like this year has churned. And I think the word I use at the top is it feels compressed in terms of releases, because... Like, the Warhammer set doesn't feel like that was a year ago, the Warhammer Commander set, and it was over a year ago. It was like, it was the same kind of time that the Doctor Who dropped, which is October time. We're 2 months past October as it is. And I don't know if it's indicative of maybe my own lifestyle, that because I work hospitality, and I mean, I'm sure you have the same thing, because you work a calendar job of where you've constantly got things coming in and out of your venue.
Yeah, I work in visitor attractions, yeah.
So that, for me, speeds up the year anyway, because you're already looking... My rota, I'm already looking 2 weeks ahead. I'm already looking in terms of season and my quarterlies.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
I'm already looking 3 months in advance for that. And then I'll already be looking at Christmas, and I'll be looking at summertime now for what we should be doing for our points of service, like our marketing and everything for it. By the time I get to summer, I'll already be marketing for December and Christmas time again. And it's kind of funny because that, coupled with the fact that Magic is doing a similar thing, of where they drop the year release, as it were, of where they try just make sure that all of the stores know what's going to be happening over the next year. For us as Magic players, it's a lot because we don't get to play with the tangible cards yet, but it still feels like all of that information and stuff coming in one go. If I couple those two things together, every week I'm already looking ahead and I'm already rushing and I don't have time to sit and think on them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the product fatigue thing is very real. What I will say, though, as much as it's funny you saying that, this year has felt quick and there is a lot of like compressed release times. For me, the one that really stuck with me is all the Lord of the Rings Doctor Who stuff. They did 2 marquee IPs.
Yeah.
In the same sort of half of the year. Which is kind of wild, right?
True. Yeah, I'd like to put a pin on that, so I'd like to come back to that in specifics a little bit.
What I will say is that I sort of don't... maybe I've gotten used to it. Maybe that's it. I was about to say I didn't feel it. I think I do, but maybe this is the year I've gotten used to the hyper fast release schedules.
Yeah.
Because last year I was definitely like, I am actually a little bit done with Magic. I took a huge break with deck building. We'll talk about the decks we built this year, and I was just looking at them. I've only built 3 new Commander decks this year, which for an enfranchised player is not that many. And I took a big chunk of the year off. And this is even the year we went away around Command Fest London times. We went away with friends to play Magic for a long week. So we've done Magic stuff, but I feel like I've played less.
Taken the step back, as it were.
Yeah. And actually, I don't know, maybe I feel like I'm just used to this speed now.
Yeah, I think the reason I brought it up is because, again, it mirrored my own personal lifestyle, and I don't know if that will feel the same to folks that say, maybe they run a job where, they basically just want to show up, earn the money, and then fuck off at the end of the day, and then Magic's their escape. So having something consistently day to day is good for that person whose day to day might feel like it lags, it takes too long, each week drags, and they've got this constant influx of something new and exciting happening. Whereas someone like myself, whose day-to-day doesn't give them much time to breathe, I don't have time to fit in the day-to-day Magic, that I would like to. So then I end up getting it in chunks at the end of the week, or I feel like, I've missed this release date, or missed this kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of random bits of information about sets for next year that I've completely just not noticed. So I'll be looking at threads and someone will bring something up that's clearly like fact and come out in an article at some point in the last couple of months. But I've not fucking seen it. So it's new information to me for that as well. So I think that was more a personal thing. I think obviously last year I was off for a well, I know, I guess it was 2 years ago. God, I'm missing years out now. But life has got a lot busier recently, which makes me feel like keeping up with the Magic thing became harder to do, and Magic just didn't stop. I think that's the big thing this year you can see is it didn't stop. There were 2 remaster sets. There were 2, as you say, like Universes Beyond products. Even if one of them was a full set and not like ancillary to the release schedule, it did feel like there were 2 big marquee events, shall I say, that happened. And then alongside that, you've also got the 4 sets that released.
The 4 sets that released, that capped off a year and a half's worth of storyline.
Yeah.
Well, arguably many more, but do you know what I mean? Like, ramping up to it. And has kicked off a new era of Magic, sans Planeswalkers.
We're straddling story arcs this year, and that's the thing I've put in as well, is that so the story arc in general. So we had Dominaria united into Brothers War at the end of last year, kind of leading up to this idea of like now all of the information is known, the plan of building a filigree Sylex is in place. We are ready and preparing to take the fight to Phyrexia. There's been all this build up. The build up's done. We've built it all up. It's all ready to get torn down. And then the 2 first sets of the year being All Will Be One and then March of the Machine were essentially us looking at the Phyrexian arc and its final act. You know, we got it's Act 3, and then we got the finale, and then we got a fucking wet fart of an epilogue.
A little diarrhea drill.
Yeah. So I feel like straddling the beginning of the year with Act 2 into Act 3 might not have been the best, because my biggest takeaway from that is that it very much felt like they were rushing through the end of this half-decade long build-up just to go, cool, well, let's rush to the point of where we're getting rid of Planeswalkers for you, because that's something you've been asking for years.
Yeah.
Which, when you frame it like that, because I hadn't really thought about it in a cynical fashion like that, but when I frame it like that, it does make it feel like they're like, oh, okay, well, you I know you like the big arcs and everything, but you complained about the last one, the War of the Sparks. You said it was a bit shittily done. So, and you don't run these Planeswalkers gallivanting doing stuff about. We hear you loud and clear. So we're going to do something. We're going to finish off on a big story. It's going to be better than the last story. You're going to love it. And we're going to get rid of Planeswalkers altogether for you. Well, not altogether, but at least for the most part. Reframe the way that we're doing the story, tell it in a different fashion, have a slightly different point of view when we go to sets, because I think there was it's a very different way that we tackle world building and look at. I'm interested to see when we go to a new set for the first time since the Omen Path arc starts, because we've done 2 revisits.
Oh yeah.
With a slightly different focus. The focus not being on the Planeswalkers being there for some MacGuffin that they need to do for the Grand Arc, and instead it's just its own isolated, post-invasion kind of fallout, but it's an isolated individual story.
Yeah, we go to a brand new place.
It's going to be interesting to see like how they balance that with not having any outside influence.
The next set or the next product release is Murder of Markov.
Yeah, Murder of Markov Manor.
Karlov, not Markov.
Let's do the same thing. Of Karlov Manor, and then we do the Bastards of Thunder Junction. Outlaws.
So that'll be the first new
That's
place.
the first new, yeah, exactly.
That's the first new.
Well, yeah, because, I guess it depends on how the murders of Karlov Manor... Fucking... I'd even try it. My brain went, don't say the other one.
Everyone I've been speaking to.
So annoying. Why would you have Karlovs and Markovs both have manors and have the same words? Whatever.
Yeah, no.
It would be interesting to see if they do something radically different and it doesn't end up feeling like a Ravnica set. I don't know if they're going to do... I guess we've already seen some spoilers and the guilds look like they're going to be very present. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the Omen Path arc. I think the Omen Path arc is a lot more... like set by set, a little bit more interesting, because they can do more things with it. They can do more touristy effects. They can do this... the race set where they're going to be going through 3 different planes on a race course. Like that sounds sick.
That's going to be great.
So
it feels much more magic-y.
Yes. It's annoying that these big ass arcs don't actually... It's annoying when they don't land, because it does kind of feel like the Magic story as a great big thing doesn't work anymore. And I feel like that's not necessarily Magic Story's fault. I think it's just what they're trying to do and the way they're releasing sets and making the story work.
It has the Star Wars problem of everyone complains about the fact that the Star Wars sagas that in their triplicates all are really just the story of one little dysfunctional Force-sensitive family. It's just the Skywalkers. Skywalker. Oh, they're a second cousin, still technically a fucking Skywalker, whatever the shit.
Yeah.
You know, and Magic, I think, had that problem, whether it was with people like the Gatewatch or just like these little, like...
Everything was either Urza related
Yeah,
or
or-
Phyrexian related. Here's Yorgmoth
And it's
again.
just a handful of Planeswalkers, considering the fact that there are an infinite number of Planeswalkers, because there's an infinite number
It's
of planes.
Teferi again. What a shock.
Yeah. When's he gonna get over fucking Zelfir? Hopefully fucking now.
Yeah.
You know, so I think having it be this massive tapestry of little omen paths weaving in and out to create this big picture, as opposed to just like 4 or 5 characters going, it's all about me, and I don't like this dragon, and oh, those robots are scary. You know, I think that is much better.
Let's not keep getting the same righteous point of view of Gideon if you don't like it, or the same bratty point of view of Shada if you don't
I'm
like it.
sort of done with Khan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let Khan be.
Yeah.
Let Teferi
very
be.
much so.
Teferi's a great character. They really brought him back in an amazing way over the past 5 or 6 years, but he's done now.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to have... Yeah, things need to end. I think the Omen Path arc will be... It'd be funny. It'd be interesting to see where they go with what the reason behind it is, because there's still this like, where'd all the sparks go? We haven't actually got like a full... We didn't get an actual full epilogue, even though we had an epilogue set. It didn't actually epilogue at all. Anything.
How much of a fucking face slap, but I almost wish they would do it if they did like one little one-off story where it's Bolos in the meditation prison realm.
Juggling sparks.
Yeah, he's like, got him in the end, bitches!
You can't come and get them because you don't know where I am.
Well, like, he can't get out. It's maybe like the meditation realm, like, Ugin turns around and goes, I sent all the sparks and we're safe. And everyone's like, where'd you send the sparks, Ugin? He's like, hang on.
No.
I might have done a whoopsie. Whoopsie poo-poo.
Whoopsie poo-poo. Yeah, that'd be funny. Again, I kind of don't care. Like, anything... But, like, the big question marks, I'm like, I don't care who's in the Ozolith, really, necessarily as much. I actually care. I think the last year, like, the last decade of Magic has kind of got me to a point of where I don't... Because story writing, for me, can be so hit or miss, I'd much rather it be small contained stories for me to be able to grok than keep worrying about this, like, I wonder where this is going to go, and I wonder if my tinfoil hat theory is going to come true. I find that actually a lot less... enthralling than I used to.
Interesting. On the subject of tinfoil hat theories, on off that point, how do you feel about this? I was thinking about this today. So we had a return to Eldraine as the palette cleanser set from the end of the Phyrexian arc into the Omen Path arc. Except this time, so when we first went to Eldraine, it was a complete palette cleanser after War of the Spark, and then we went into Thoros Beyond Death and Ikoria, kind of setting up some different ideas of a story, but they were also kind of palette cleansery as well, because it was kind of a new world after the kind of big Planeswalker.
Ikoria didn't really have a large spanning thing. Elspeth's story. I mean, there was no story for Thoros Beyond Death.
There was a whole mess of that.
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely Eldraine was a palette cleanser.
Yeah.
But what they did is they used Eldraine to set up Oko as a character, and then Oko never really does anything. Then we have this year where they use Eldraine as the palette cleanser set, but they really lean into this whole like Omen Paths are now a thing, so actually it's a kickoff rather than a palette cleanser, and the main character who's going to be the main character in our sort of insert for the player in Kellen,
and we've seen that that's
son.
carrying on and is true,
and he will be in Bastards of Thunder Junction next year.
Yeah, Bastards of Thunder Junction.
Like, he's the main, well, we don't know, anti-hero, probably protagonist, anti-hero.
Well, yes.
So my thing is
Go on, do it. Say the theory.
You can have the theory, but my question is that they had a whole year of doing up setups that didn't pay off, but instead it's like they planted Oko 2 years ago in a palette cleanser set for something that was going to happen like way down the line, and they had a whole Phyrexian arc in between those things.
So this is where I think that they do this kind of... I think Lost Cans of Ixalan's a really good example of this, of where they go... We can do a really compelling story, but we can leave everything open to then use however we need to at whatever point in the future. There's not a plan right now for them to go, cool, we're going to be back at Ixalan. It's not that we go coming soon in 2025 or whatever. You know, like they've just left it and gone, we'll go back to Ixalan whenever we want to.
Yeah.
We'll pick these stories, these threads up whenever we need to.
They design 3 years in advance, but I suppose, you know, that's sort of...
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's the same thing with Oko. If you say it's 3 years in advance and they dropped it 2 years ago... Now
2019 was the original Eldraine, actually.
Yeah, I guess so. I think for Oko there might have been a bit of pushback because, I mean, I doubt it. They did, you know, his card was too strong and they wanted to not have him around too much. They might have, for example, at a certain point the Ozolith was going to be here, and then they thought, actually, that's too much still going on. We don't need to pick up that thread again. Basically, the multiverse of Magic is the multiverse for a reason, and they can without any rushing or any particular sense of, urgency, pick up whoever they want whenever they want and drop whoever they want whenever they want. We haven't had Garrick in years. Even when we got Garrick, it was kind of, I'm the babysitter, and then he disappears again for ages. Kasmina and her Agency of Doom or whatever. Like, you see what I mean? There are so many... When you think about it, there are so many things they could pick up. Emrakul's still in the fucking moon, mate.
Yeah.
And we didn't even touch on any of that, apart from it made the day-night cycle a bit fucked up. It doesn't actually have any pertinence. And that could have happened whether Emrakul was in the moon or not.
Yeah.
You know, just because that was maybe it was Emrakul that did it. They didn't even confirm or deny whether it was or not, you know? So there's a lot, I think it's one of those things of where I don't think it's bad to not finish off stories if you give that particular chapter a nice flourish at the end, and then you can pick it up whenever. But I think they deliberately leave enough of these threads open and give characters enough agency that Oko could fulfill 3 or 4 different roles depending on what they need him to in that story.
I kind of like that, because it also, like, it lets the community excitement for things have some sort of input and say, as opposed to them just telling us, you have to like this character, which is what they sort of did during the Gatewatch arc. You have to invest in these characters because they're the only ones we're going to have for about 7 years. And I think, the fact that everyone is so excited about Kasmina, and have been since War of the Spark, and then in Strixhaven, and as everyone's like, oh, she's going to have that cabal of, like, Planeswalker children or some shit, or, like, you know, now interdimensional wizards that can fuck around and do whatever they like. That is completely made up by the community. Yeah. And eventually they're going to go, let's give the people what they want. And it will be all the better for it.
It's always one of these things of where I think they throw all of the spaghetti, and if it sticks, they don't have to go and take it off the wall for a while, right? They just know it's stuck there.
That's a very good analogy.
But I think the plan is, I think Kellen's going to go off to all of these different planes, gain a little bit more, confidence and everything, and then we'll see him go to Thunder Junction. His dad's like, a pew pew, I'm hanging around with Rakdos and Vraska. And he's like, Dad, but you were supposed to be one of the good guys. Maybe I can turn you around. And he's like, maybe I can turn you around. You know, I think that'll probably be the narrative conflict when he gets to that set. It will just be, by that point he probably would have forgotten a little, not legitimately forgotten, but it probably would have been less important to be like, I'm going to find my dad now, and then more like, oh, eventually maybe I'll find this random fairy guy who fucked my mum. But yeah, I think the plan is that he'll go through a few iterations, and when we get to Thunder Junction, that'll be him and his daddy kind of having and maybe that'll be the foil to the enemy's plans, is that Oko suddenly has a moment of, but not my son, which would be really hard to write, in a compelling fashion, because he's a trick who gives a fuck about nothing. But hey ho, whatever. Anyway, story arc, cool. I think the reason why that, again, I think coming back all the way around to it, the way the year feel compresses, because they were rushing through that final arc, and I think it felt quite obvious they were doing so when they did All Will Be One back-to-back with March of the Machine so quickly, and then shoved Aftermath just on the end. It was very much, cool, we're done now with these big arcs. We've done the Nicol Bolas one, we've done the Eldrazi one, now we've done the Phyrexian one. There's no one else. We can't bring anyone else back that's big. There's no more, bring back this big bad person. No. Now we're on new things. We're doing new stuff. This is the new age of Magic. The Planeswalkers aren't even here. They weren't even Planeswalkers anymore. What's that little symbol at the bottom? That sparkling? You don't even think about it.
Me. Do you know one little thing I noticed that they didn't pick up on? Because I was looking back over March Machine All Will Be One, because not that I forgot it, but just to refresh, because obviously
it was really hard to differentiate between that and March of the Machine.
One of our story spotlights for last year was Tangled, with Teferi and Ren moving from Ren 6 to Ren 7. We were so excited about the idea that Ren was teaching Teferi how to untangle his own magic like a puzzle, because he was using the same sort of magic.
And then she just did it.
They just flipped the planes around.
Well, yeah, but wasn't some of the knowledge of him untangling what allowed the temporal anchor to work better? Maybe.
So what are we saying is that because she helped him figure out his own time magic, when it became time for her to flip the planes around, she knew what she needed to do.
Kind of thing, yeah. I think the idea was that they probably taught each other and found some middle ground between nature magic and time magic, and figured that time is actually just another aspect of nature.
Because they slightly sandbagged that. We were all expecting Teferi to be like, I have learned my lesson.
Well,
woohoo!
The moment when because I guess it's hard for us because we haven't read a lot of the old literature regarding Teferi and how he handles his magic and how competent he is with it. But because the modern or the contemporary narrative devices used for Teferi haven't actually gone massively into depth with his time magic. He hasn't actually been Ubermensch, you know. He's just normal Teferi now. So we haven't actually gone into too much depth of how and what he can do time-wise and how it manifests and how he sees it, the metaphysics of time, of chronomancy. But that moment where he manages to pause the moment where Urza blows up the Sylex and then go into it, I think part of that mastery also came from that little bit of... I think I think he had to almost like relearn how powerful his time magic was, using Thomas Ren as a lens of like, oh, there's another way that I can kind of play with this.
Yeah.
I don't need to think about it so mathematically. I can think about it more naturalistically, and maybe that allowed him to have a greater mastery, and then have that moment with Urza, which then did everything. Or as you say, there was a learning in both directions.
Just a thought. I thought about it this morning.
I think payoff in Magic's really, really hard, especially story payoff, because again they've thrown so much out there, and there's so much individual headcanon and so much expectation that if you don't hit all of the notes exactly, then there's always going to be someone out there who's like, this could have been done better though, because my headcanon was better. It's like, of course, but you know,
usually that's us.
yeah. So I mean, I don't have much more to say about the All Would Be One and March of the Machine. I think Phyrexia got their time. I think their thing was really good representation. I think we had really good things to say about both sets.
I think it delivered for me the two biggest individual stories of the year, which was A Man of Parts and Phyrexia Will Be One by Reinhard Suarez, which was the one where we saw Tezzeret rush back to his home plane, knowing that everything's going to get fucked up, to go back to his abusive father's old house, and he gave that boy a whole bunch of whatever he's made out of,
the Dark Steel,
and was like, you know, take this away and, like, you know, be free. And then the other one was obviously Divine Intervention, where we see Elspeth become an angel. Yeah,
it's funny. There's still a lot of people questioning how and what that happened, but I think what I like about that, it was a culmination of multiple different planes worth of angelic magic all working together to make this yada yada thing happen. It's much easier to yada yada something that goes, well, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And I guess only Planeswalkers are able to do that. But yeah, it's a very good story writing in general, I think. Again, we've had a year's worth of which way are we telling the story this set? Who knows? Has there been a second episode to the murders of Karlov Manor?
No, but they...
So why is there such a big fucking gap?
Because it's the hype train.
But the hype train... So why have they gone from here's all of them at once to, we'll make you wait a month in between each... Fuck off! Give us some organisation, please.
They also did end up doing audio versions on YouTube of the Lost Cannons of Ixalan stories.
Did they? Okay, good.
Not with the two hosts of the MTG Lore podcast.
Oh, do you reckon they listened to our podcast? I might have thought maybe we get someone else, because Andy Mann didn't like it.
I think they listened to other more prolific creators who were saying the same thing that we were, and went, oh yeah, that is an oopsie on our part. Maybe we'll just... Gary, can you go and do some recording, please?
Oh, is it worse?
I haven't listened to all the way through.
Gary.
It is a dude this time.
Okay, but do you think it's a mark down in terms of quality? Does it feel like it might be internalized? Okay,
but I mean, to be fair, that's because the old Drain ones weren't exactly studio quality.
Yeah, fair. Again, if you can do
neither are we.
If you can do something properly.
But we don't have Wizards of the Coast money. Or indeed Hasbro money, now that they did a fucking bunch of layoffs. We'll talk about that maybe at the end.
I also have a random little note here, moving on to Universes Beyond, because we're going to do the last set, we're going to do the last arc, we're going to talk about the two Universes Beyond, and then we're going to talk about the two revisit sets. Kind of the way I look at it is the old arc into the new arc.
Okay.
Might be the biggest thing to happen in Magic in a long time. The Lord of the Rings set.
Yeah.
The One Ring.
Objectively, yes.
Yeah.
And
that's why I think, from a subjective point of view, sets can come and go without you noticing, depending on what month of the year it is. But yeah, objectively, I think this is probably
massive.
The biggest.
I mean, it's the world's most recognisable fantasy IP, maybe outside of Game of Thrones these days.
Crossed with, even then, I think.
Tolkien is very much seen as the OG, even though that's very untrue.
It's the Star Wars of fantasy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And yeah, to have that cross with Magic, which is the largest commercially played fantasy game outside of Dungeons and Dragons.
And I think Magic handled it really well from a flavour. We are both very ill, aren't we?
Yeah, a little bit. Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
There might be sniffles and
sorry, listeners.
And
I'm going to be coughing. He's going to be sniffling. I think from a flavour point of view, Lord of the Rings was very complicated. Very complicated relationship. Much like many of us are probably experiencing at Christmas time with our families. In terms of, we love it.
Also, Merry Christmas, I guess, or Happy Holidays.
Yeah, Happy Holidays. But I felt it very complicated, my relationship to that set. Not only because I'm not, as is sort of now becoming established, whilst I don't begrudge Universes Beyond existing, and I love the fact that people get to love their own thing, and it brings new players. All the positive stuff I'm really hyped about. I personally, Andy Mann, just am not that fussed about Universes Beyond cards.
Yeah.
Even on the decks I built this year were technically Universes Beyond Secret Layers that were the reskins, and then I was interested. I didn't even know what the cards did before then. But even if you... So, I appreciate the fact they did Lord of the Rings, and depending on how you look at it, it's either a glass half empty or a glass half full with the flavour. Because either you can say, they've taken this really well established, really pulled apart, meticulously poured over bit of literature. Because, you know, the Imaginarium of
Dr. Parnassus.
is it? What is it? It's Tolkien's Legendarium. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's the collection of all the different works. Imaginarium. What an idiot. It's Legendarium, obviously.
Yeah, not Imaginarium.
Yeah. Like, it's obviously vast and huge and people know it really well. So to fit it into this card game is quite a feat. That's the glass half full side. The glass half empty side is that I don't think a lot of the flavour landed really that well.
I don't think they managed to fit it in properly at all.
Interesting.
I think it's too big. I think I said this. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think what they tried to do with Lord of the Rings to convert it into a Magic set was too much, and I think it actually is. One second, I'm currently making a drink. I'm just going to come back.
Yeah, no worries.
Come back in a moment. And I think it's the same thing with Doctor Who. Now I look at the Doctor Who thing with a bit of retrospect and objectivity. I think both sets or both IPs are too in depth, and each character has too much gravitas or too much story relevance or too many abilities or too many things that the character that the audience knows about them to be able to convert it into a Magic card. And the thing that worries me is that we're moving further away from stuff that I think fits very succinctly, things like Lord of the Rings, and even to a lesser extent I think Warhammer is actually, you put that alongside Brothers War and you go, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're going into a Final Fantasy direction, and like, you know, it's things like that I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan, and I'm worried because there's so much lore and fandom and opinions and fucking fan fiction about Final Fantasy that I don't know how you fit it into a Magic set when you've already got a card game about it anyway, and make it feel like it belongs within the set without it being either too on the nose or it's too memey. And I say this every time we go towards one of these things. I have a lot of concern. And then when it actually delivers, my stupid kiddie brain goes, new things, great stuff, yay! And I kind of ignore the fact that I didn't like the idea of it going in.
Yeah.
And then looking back on reflection, Lord of the Rings, it was a lot. It was a full set. Like, you look through some of the cards and it's just the cards just keep going and going and going, and the text doesn't necessarily inform further of the character because you already know the character. You already know Legolas. Yeah. You could have put Legolas on a 2/3 with Reach and you go, yeah, that's Legolas. Why does it need 6 abilities? You already know what Legolas does. And then the more abilities you add, the more like potentially you move away from what the card's supposed to do. Obviously, it also focused on the books, whereas sometimes when we're looking at things that are happening in the films, there's all that dissonance. I mean, that's just a microcosm of Lord of the Rings. But even Doctor Who, the gameplay with all of for all of the decks is very complicated, very involved. And I had the moment with the Jeskai deck of where I changed out Rose and the 10th Doctor for Amy Pond and the 11th Doctor, having recently watched that particular arc of Doctor Who. Like, the girlfriend and I are rewatching all of the new Who to try and catch up with everything. And yeah, you play the Matt Smith Doctor, and then you play Amy, and Amy fetches out Rory, and then the Doctor makes them unblockable, and they remove counters off of things, and it all kind of like, having rewatched the series recently, I'm like, oh, this all makes lots of really cool flavour sense, but it's lots of little itty bitty stuffy thingies happening. And I'm not saying that Magic the Gathering isn't full of lots of itty bitty stuffy thingies happening. It's just that every fucking card, it was almost like they couldn't reprint a card into the set without it being a complicated itty bitty card. And there's just so much, and it's so, even as an enfranchised player, it's a lot to grok, and I'm concerned that they're going to make like every legendary creature with the Final Fantasy have a limit break, and then each limit break is going to be specific to one of their limits, and then it just ends up becoming like, if you know, wink wink nudge nudge. Yeah. If you don't know, that's a lot. It's a lot to stomach. And no, I don't think they're doing a full set of Final Fantasy like they did with Lord of the Rings. But with Lord of the Rings, it felt like they went, you can't avoid this. We're making it a standard set. Yeah. These cards are going to be legal in every fucking format. There's going to be 400 cards of it. There's also going to be a little bit in the Christmas time because we couldn't fit it all in. Yeah. You ready, kids, for Lord of the Rings Part 2? Yeah. And it's funny because they're finishing off one of the biggest arcs, arguably in the entire history of Magic, which is the Phyrexian arc. Because the way they finished it off, not only nerfed them into oblivion, okay, yeah, the oil somehow was fucking imprinted onto Elish, so then she did the mothership thing of when she died and all of the oil stops, even though that was the whole point, is the oil can start, you can start again from a single drop. They did all of that, and then you've got this big new sweeping Omen Path arc and everything, and then you'd go, fuck it. Instead of handling both of these things and giving them the space they need to breathe, let's chuck an entire Lord of the Rings set into the middle of the year, which very much feels like the entire focus of the year.
Yeah.
And then before we've even really got over that, and you've nestled these new Return to sets, here's Doctor Who in the middle as well. And again, these are both IPs I love. I've bought a ton of cards. I enjoy playing with them. But when you look at it on reflection and you look at it as a year, God, it's a lot.
When I agree with everything you just said. When we had both of the Dungeons & Dragons sets, Adventures of Forgotten Realms, Baldur's Gate, they felt like they were going, here's how Dungeons & Dragons would look if it was Magic the Gathering instead.
Yeah.
What Lord of the Rings and Doctor Who look like is, I'm a massive fan of these IPs, and I want everyone to know how much of a big fan I am, because the cards are going to be really complicated. And everyone raved and ranted about the Doctor Who precons, as did you at the time, to be fair. And it's not that you're wrong to have enjoyed them and to have thought they were super flavourful, but I think, rather cynically, and I think you're starting to come to my little cynicism corner here, being complicated and super niche and super like, hey, this is exactly how the Doctor behaves in this episode, is not the same as fun gameplay or accessible gameplay. And if they're not going to make accessible Magic cards for the sets which are like, hey, we want to get new players in, imagine if a Doctor Who fan who's never played Magic the Gathering before picked up one of the Doctor Who precons. They're not going to know what the fuck's going on.
There are literally cards with mechanics that didn't have reminder text on them.
Yeah.
Like, the Myriad, I've said this before, the Master Duplicated or Multiplied, every line of text on it requires you to know what Myriad does, and it doesn't tell you what Myriad does on the card.
Now,
it's so dumb.
The other factor with the gameplay stuff, because I think there are good things about these things. I think the gameplay was a flavour fail, if we bring it back to flavour. If you look at something like the One Ring, the card itself, or the Tempted by the Ring tempts you.
Yeah, temptation, yeah.
Both of those things, those ideas, are antithetical to what is actually the One Ring. And I think that's a problem with the marketing. Because you can't have the MacGuffin of the set, which is inherently the the phylactery, the reliquary of the evil bad guy in Lord of the Rings. The whole point of that book was about absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's Tolkien's whole thing, but you can't have that card be something that, when you play it, completely ruins your day.
Yeah.
Because no one would want it otherwise.
Yeah, it should be... See, even a simple fix should be, fuck all of the burden and all that nonsense and stuff, I get it, cool, whatever. Like, take away the fact you need it to be a functionally playable card. Because that's what they clearly did. They went, no, this needs to be playable everywhere. The protection from everything I get... I mean, again, step by step, the card makes flavour sense. I'd much rather have at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw 3 cards and lose half your life.
Yeah. That'd be great.
That makes way more sense. And yes,
yeah.
Okay, it's still really powerful. You probably have to cost it 6.
But
because
it gives you
shockingly enough, the One Ring should probably cost a lot of fucking mana to make, because it took Sauron's entire essence to fucking create. It should actually be a 10 mana artifact that does something that's really, really fucking dumb, but also really, really hurts you. Not this progressive value engine. The same thing with the Ring tempting you. We've said this before. There is no negativity to being tempted by the Ring. Ever. It's not like on Chapter 5 you lose the game.
No.
Which you should do. Or on Chapter 5 you sacrifice your ring bearer.
Yeah, someone
kills
you to get it.
The fact that you never sacrifice your ring bearer. Oh, I guess that Gollum just got better as time went on. I guess he just eventually beefed up into the Hulk. No!
Yeah.
It's not how the card works. So yeah.
Or eventually whittles it down to a 0/1 with no abilities that becomes indestructible.
Yeah,
maybe.
Fair enough.
So
that kind of makes more
hangs around forever, yeah.
And it's funny because I was listening to Melissa Del Toro talk about specifically the Lord of the Rings set in reference to Commander or other formats and playability. And obviously the play design team came in around the same kind of time they were developing that. And she tried really hard to avoid the word nerfing necessarily, but they came in, they basically looked at a load of the cards and went, this doesn't, from both directions, from a power level, this doesn't work, we need to bring it back. And then from a mel point of view, a mechanical point of view, in terms of how complicated it is, this needs to be tweaked, you're trying to do too much. And that's the thing, from that, they had to have the Magic the Gathering objectivity, because this primarily and foremost is a Magic the Gathering set. Yeah, we're trying to make the Lord of the Rings fans happy, but at the end of the day, we need to make functional Magic the Gathering playing cards. Not just from a power level point of view, just from a complexity, grokkable point of view. I mean, there's a lot of cards in the set that I could look at and go doesn't make sense. And we've said that before. So I think they even realised and had to wrestle with this. It almost felt like they were forced to trying to make this work. And it's going to feel a little bit like that with Final Fantasy, and God, it's going to feel like it when we get to Marvel. And it's kind of irking, because it's, as you say, there are certain things that feel like they're born from within Magic, and it's an expression of Magic in another capacity. And there are other things that go, here's this IP, let's force it through the lens of Magic. Yeah. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think we're kind of seeing a little bit of Walking Dead and some of these, of where it goes, this wouldn't otherwise be an IP that works in the game, and it doesn't feel naturally synergistic. Mm-hmm. And then, again, it all comes down to personal preference, because depending on whether or not you love this IP from like a childhood or nostalgic or whatever point of view, it might be your favourite thing ever in the world. Like, I even think, for example, the Transformers cards, technically there were automatons in a set about automatons. That made sense. I think the Living Metal flippy thingy, they're actually all really cool cards. Mm-hmm. Artistically, I think it completely jarred with what we were going for the Grim Dark Brothers War, and then you had these 2D fucking pop-up, which I love. Again, I love cartoons, and I've got a shiny version of Megatron, and it's one of the cards that I showed one of my mate Greg, and he's learnt how to play the game, but he's not really into the game, and literally went, "Oh, shiny," and he turned it and went, "Oh, shinier," and it's like perfect. That's kind of what the point of those particular cards were for, but they were only a very small thing.
Yeah,
and let's also now talk about the fact that now they're forcing Universes Beyond cards into normal sets. We've seen it done with the Transformers, and then we saw it done with Jurassic Park as well.
I've heard rumblings that that's going to go away.
They're not doing it, or there's nothing planned, at least for the next 3 or 4 sets.
Because I think they're starting to realise that people are actually just a little bit done.
I think it made sense for the Jurassic Park one. The main issue people have with the Jurassic Park one is that 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a basic land.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking shit. Because they already did this with the Godzilla secret lair or whatever. If they went, here's a basic forest, but it's got a dinosaur in the background of it, or it's got Godzilla in the background of it.
But at least that's a secret lair.
Fair enough. But also, if you're opening there's people who opened like a full box, and of the 8 cards that they got, 7 of them were a land, and 1 of them was a token. So you don't get any real playable cards in. So I think also this also kind of goes onto a fresh point that we're not going to touch on too much or talk about too much, I can't imagine. But they're changing the way that packs are delivered again going into next year, and it didn't work putting the Universes Beyond cards into the packs that they're the play packs. I think they're called now. They're called play packs, and you basically they serve somewhere between set booster and draft booster. Yes. And then you'll have the collector's booster on the side, and they're all for the fancy full art.
Yeah, I think they wanted to whittle down the types of boosters.
And they wanted one that worked for draft purposes, but then also didn't feel bad if you were opening to pull cards from a collecting point of view.
If it works, it's going to be the best thing Magic's ever done. Yeah. And if it doesn't, it's not going to impress anyone.
No. And again, they'll keep doing it. It's the same thing of where they're currently clearly in a state of where they need this game to be making them consistent money. But every single thing they release has some pushback in some regard, whether it be the way they release their story, the way they release their sets, what they're releasing within the sets. There's a little bit of pushback on all of them. So all of these things are changing. Every set, they change a little bit the format of how it's delivered. What's delivered with it. Like, again, the Murders at Karlov Manor, releasing the first story of a murder mystery and then leaving it for a month is genius. But don't do that after giving us all of the stories in one go from the last set, because that doesn't then make sense, and it's very whiplashy, because then it makes me feel like, have I missed it? Have I forgotten? Like, what's going on? And I think it's similar from a product point of view, of where if you keep changing the way things are released and how you're going to buy the product and what's going to be in the product, it starts to become very disconcerting for franchise players. The new players don't know, because it's new for them every single time. But yeah, it did feel weird that this was a massive focus for Universes Beyond. And next year there isn't anything ginormous coming. Assassin's Creed is going to be here.
What?
And again, if it's, I don't know if it's a full set. I think it's a full set. If it's a full set, it's annoying because it doesn't need to be.
Weird IP to bring in. I like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I think it works as a commander set because it's much easier to push that theme and that era of history, because there's no magic or anything crazy like that going on. There's no sciencey stuff going on.
There is in the Odyssey era.
They're not going to go so far as to put Adam and Eve in the fucking Assassin's Creed.
Oh well, what sort of like the kind of the
alien-y
alien
progenitor people,
progenitor people.
They're doing a Prometheus again. we're not. I don't think they're going to put those characters into it, but I think it's in. I think they're likely to do. I can't remember if it's a full set or a commander set. I can't imagine any cards from that not fitting into, like, if I mix that with Fioran cards.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like, from an aesthetic point of view, it's less jarring than a fucking Space Marine Dreadnought or Tom Bombadil. So next year it doesn't feel like there's going to be so much of that, and as well because we're going to some really quirky planes like Darkholme or Duskholme, whatever it's called, and Redthorn and places like that. Like, I'm just saying random words now, but you know what I mean.
The Horror House one.
The Horror House one and the
Red Wall one.
the red one, exactly. Yeah, so I think those are going to be very cool, and the return sets that we're going to next year are going to be very cool. And I'm actually really excited for next year in general, because it feels like there's going to be a slight less of this kind of focus. But this felt like the year of Universes Beyond are coming. Are you ready? Yeah. You weren't ready, were you? Tough. It's already happening.
Yeah, I think you're starting to sort of see my perspective on it a little bit. I think the thing which I find really jarring with all of the Universes Beyond stuff as well is that one of the big flavour wins for Lord of the Rings was the fact that they had their own vision for like the design of the characters, the design of the world that stayed true to Lord of the Rings, whilst also it not being Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings or something that we've seen before. So, like, you know, Pippin, for example, has like this kind of short back and sides quiff thing, like going on.
It did actually work really well. It did feel like its own version of Lord of the Rings.
They played with the ethnicity of a lot of the characters to, you know, make
having a Black Aragorn is really awesome.
Black Aragorn, like, and also like, you know, Asian Legolas, and just having all these different characters that are like there is no reason why all the billions of people on this planet who love Lord of the Rings can't see themselves in the IP.
Agreed.
And by the way, if you do have a problem with Black Aragorn, why don't you grow the fuck up and fuck off out of this podcast? Just for anyone who's just going, I didn't like it. Have all the rest of Lord of the Rings history if I can look at. Anyway, but I like the fact that they took their own swing at it.
Yeah.
And then we get fucking Doctor Who, and I'm looking at Catherine Tate,
literally
and Maisie Williams,
the exact
and Matt
version
Smith,
of them.
And I'm like, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
I can't. It takes me out.
Me, the Immortal, not knowing that episode yet, but looking at it and going, oh, that was Maisie Williams who plays that character.
Yeah,
like
not even that character. In my head, she's fucking Arya Stark.
Yeah, exactly. I knew her as the person she is in real life, not the person she was from the IP, and that's a little bit. It reminded me a lot of the Secret Lair for the Dungeons and Dragons, of where you've got Hugh fucking Grant.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm like, hey, that's Hugh Grant on a Magic the Gathering card. It's also Hugh Grant on the Magic the Gathering card.
Chris Pine's the one for me in that one. I'm like, fucking
the
Chris Pine.
The last time they did this was the Sorcerer's Apprentice, where they did some fake or promo or very, very limited release versions of a magician doing certain cards. And I can't remember if it was a custom card now. This is very telling, but it's very indicative of that from like, and this was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It feels very much like that of like, you're just kind of putting real life on a Magic card here. It starts feeling like Top Trumps. And at that point,
I watched the Dungeons and Dragons film recently.
It's actually not too bad.
I really liked it.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
I liked all of the actors in it. I thought it was a really well done piece of cinema and very Dungeons and Dragons-y.
Yeah, it felt exactly on point.
Don't want it on my fucking Magic card, though.
True.
This is it, and this is it. This is my whole thing, and it was my whole thing at the time. And even when I was like, Universe Beyond is okay, and then I went, oh no, I don't like it. Then I kind of flip-flop back and forth. The one constant is, I am playing Magic because I like Magic.
Yeah.
I also like Lord of the Rings. I've got half my tattoos on my arm are from other IPs that are not Magic the Gathering. One of them is Magic the Gathering one. I like those things in isolation. I don't need to be like... I wouldn't want to fucking flip on Adventure Time. I want to see Finn fighting Gandalf the Grey.
Oh, don't. It's going to happen.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't need that in my life. So yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. Anyway.
The problem is that we're kind of... We said it a few years ago, and there were all the memes were made of, like, you know, Optimus Prime versus...
Darth
Rick
Vader
and all that. Yeah. And we're here. It's happening. Like, but what I like, and let's move into.
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move into the new arc, and let's move into the new sets. And I say new sets because they are, but let's be honest, they're both two revisits. And it was quite nice to go to. I mean, technically, New Phyrexia, the two arcs there were also retreads. We weren't going into any new planes, but we were kind of doing like a new. It felt like new story, changing. We hadn't really been to New Phyrexia properly before. So that all kind of felt newish. Going back to planes that we haven't been to in a long while and have only like microcosm stories based on them. Again, Wilds of Eldraine had a little bit of the invasion because that's what created the Great Slumber. There was the story episode with Rankle and... Oh, what's the bloody...
Yara.
Is his name Yara?
No, the Elf Queen.
It was the axe dude. Torbran, thank you. So we saw Torbran and Rankle's story, and then obviously, Rankle falling in love with Yara, and then doing the whole sleepy thingy, and then we're not sure exactly, and then we find out from the story it was also pushed from the Fae court, as it were, to make it a little bit more powerful.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, we still don't actually really know what the whole point of that was. I mean, I think the story for Wilds of Eldraine was, I think when we spoke about this, still didn't land quite properly. It left too many things kind of like we
The
focused
Great
too much on
Slumber
Will on
is to
Rowan.
make everyone slumber, so the Phyrexians kind of slowed down.
Yeah, but then also it fucks the rest of your plane over.
Yeah.
But then why were you doing it? Like, we didn't really get a why or how. But both sets I think were very, very cool revisits.
Yeah.
I'd like we spoke massively massively positively against or for the Wilds of Eldraine versus the Throne of Eldraine, seeing the plane kind of develop.
Yeah.
And then also I think that Lost Caverns of Ixalan rather than being the Rivals of Ixalan, the question mark I have, and this is something that I looked at not in depth but enough to feel fairly confident, is that the complexity difference, and this is where it really, really shows. I think the current era of Magic might be moving in this direction anyway. But look at the complexity difference between Wilds of Eldraine and Throne of Eldraine, and also the complexity difference of Lost Caverns versus Rivals of Ixalan.
Yeah.
There is a big, big step up. Like the game in general, and I think it's really easy when you see two back-to-back revisits. The step up in complexity and involvement, and what you need to know, and role tokens, and every ability has 4 lines of reminder text. This, to me, is the thing that I think of this year concerns me more, is that I don't know how they really stopped doing this gravy train of we can put 2 sides to every card, we can fill everything with 3 paragraphs, your cards do 8 million different things anymore, your commons have more text on them because the reminder text is 4 lines long, and we don't put it on the uncommons on the rare, so we can fit more text onto those as well. Even the commons have the fucking keywords on, and the keywords are ridiculously long, whether it's Descend, Fathomless Descent, Discover or Explore, or even map tokens. All of these things have 4 different lines of text.
Yeah.
I love these sets. They look glorious. From a flavour point of view, from aesthetic point of view, they're awesome. From a mechanical point of view, I am full, I am choking, I am buried beneath it all. And I'm really worried that that's just what's going to keep happening. I feel like Murders of Karlov Manor, a murder mystery set already feels like it's going to have like intrigue and complexity from a story point of view.
But we do know that one of the key mechanics being clues is something that we've had before.
We have already had before, and clues are very easy. I guess
Yes.
a clues reminder text is a lot smaller than a maps reminder text.
My One Card Guild deck is going to get so many new toys that I think actually it might be too much.
And I think the point against this, because we can talk about individual flavours for the 2 sets in just a second, but off the back of still talking about Melissa Del Toro, she said that it is something they're very, very, very focused on. They are, and the thing that they're looking at isn't just complexity, but it's length. Because from a complexity point of view, what I just said about how the commons have all of the reminder text listed, once you know what those abilities do and the mechanics do, the card gets a lot shorter. Like, it's when they do, like, the extended artwork versions of cards and they cut the reminder text from them completely. So it ends up being like the card is just Rebound Cascade. Instead of being Rebound with a bunch of text after it, Cascade with a bunch of text after it. Once you know what the individual cards do, you don't read through all of it anymore. As a new player, you have to, and as someone who then picks up a pack from, like, 6 years ago and opens it and does a Chaos Wars pack or whatever, you might then look at the card and go, okay, I need all of the information to tell me. Fine. So from a complexity point of view, the set might be actually quite simple. Like, and when we were talking about Lost Caverns of Ixalan, I think this was a good example. All 4 mechanics had a lot of things going on, but once you got them, it was pretty fucking easy to grok. But the pretty easy to grok, but is more complicated on paper. Now the game gets further and further into further from its inception. Surely that's just gonna have to happen, because you can't make new succinct abilities, right?
Simple new abilities have already been done.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we've already looked at all of the simple parts of Magic and where you can go. It's really hard to find new ground that's interesting that isn't just the same, isn't just a reprint.
But then I suppose is a possible solution to this is looking at simple mechanics and building sets around them, like Reach, for example. Could you imagine a set being built around Reach and walls?
A Reach flying set, yeah. I mean, the thing is, would they go back to something so simple? Because I think they probably feel that the game is same with power creep. It's really hard to creep up in power. It's really easy to creep up in power, creating this perpetual, but this is stronger, this is stronger. As soon as you drop down, the set you drop down with almost has to go powerful in another direction to make the set individually feel still like you want to play it. Instead of going, all of it, like, imagine if you released a set of where every single card was power crept down again. You wouldn't be able to play any of them in Standard, because they'd all be worse than the cards already in Standard.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the sets coming up next year, and there's a few of them that I think it has to be like the feel of the set, like the Redwall style set, Bloomberg rats of
Bloomburrow.
Bloomburrow.
Is it Bloomburrow?
Something similar.
Something like that.
Yeah. We all know the one I'm talking about. Mouse versus Wolf.
Yeah.
That looks very much like a set which could get new players in just based on what it is.
The aesthetics.
Like, it's going to have things that have, like, 2 and a white for a legendary rat with first strike and vigilance. Like, that's just going to be what that is.
True. I mean, I guess you could do another clan set, right, of where each of the 5 had their own very simple mechanic and then you divulge from it. I mean, the way I look at it is things like, from original Wilds of Eldraine, Adamant, I think, was a really, really cool ability that focused you on making a simpler deck. Use less colours. And yet it was largely panned because, one, it wasn't supported very much because you can't support monocolour and then still support all of the other things going on.
Limited is very tough.
It's very difficult. And I think actually like a really good example of this was Rise of the Eldrazi, of where they had a defender play. They had defender and Stompy as be 2 of the biggest, and level up as well. They had all 3 of the really cool mechanical abilities of the set, played a slow plodding kind of game style that went massively against Zendikar and Worldwake, and that whiplash didn't work in standard as a block point of view, but from a gameplay point of view, you've had these 2 exceptionally quick sets back to back that's making standard faster and faster and faster, or even limited faster and faster and faster. And then suddenly you move to this other set and everything's slowed way back, but you've also got things like Ulamog and Kozilek, so it doesn't feel like depowered. So I guess my question is, how are they going to dial back on the complexity whilst also feel like they're delivering a set that has, like mechanical depth, and that's the thing that I think is interesting that Melissa was saying, was that just because a card has a lot of words doesn't mean it's complicated to play. It just means that when you play the card and then you have to say what the card does, people might get bored by what you're saying because you've got to say fucking 16 lines of text. But once they understand what the card's doing, they don't actually need to think much more than, it does this. Discover 4, and you have to read all this shit. It's like, oh, it cascades for 4.
Yeah.
But it can go to your hand, or whatever. Like, however you try and grok it down. And I guess it's a good thing the reason I wanted to bring it up, because I think it became really obvious by the end of this year that sets are really struggling to keep themselves tidy. Like, not only are we getting more and more sets that have double-sided cards, each of which having even more complicated gameplay mechanics and play directions, I hope that now they're having this massive focus on it, coming in at Lord of the Rings, and now having 2 sets to kind of play with that. I want to see next year, I really want to see them pull back on the amount of text that's on cards, or at least pull back on the amount of information I need to remember from my deck. The more I put these cards into my commander deck that's already 100 cards deep anyway, the more I need to remember this card does this but also does this on the backside. And then this card also does this, but if I transform it does this. And then it's the Planeswalker effect of where back in the day people thought Planeswalkers had too much text. Can you imagine?
But what happened with Planeswalkers, so maybe this is the lesson, is that people went, this is Jace, he draws me 2 cards. Eventually he'll do something else, but I don't really ever do that.
And you just do the same thing. Yeah, like Meld, for example. It's like, eventually it might do this flippy thing on the backside, but then I guess the problem is that these days you don't want to be like, oh, it does this thing, and then later it might do something else, and then one player goes, well, what does it do something? What's the something else later? It's like, don't worry about it. And then when it comes to it, it goes, I said don't worry about it. Well, now's the time to worry, because it's about to happen. However, ignore the Mel side of the complexity thing, I'm completely over all of that now.
Yeah, this is a Flavor podcast, right?
Weren't they cool sets?
Hell.
Weren't they really cool sets?
Looking at the spread of the entire year, but especially looking at
the latter
Eldraine
half,
and Lost Caverns of Ixalan, they were fucking cool. I was a bit down. I think Eldraine was a bit meh on story, the actual story articles. I think we were a bit like, it's fine, but wrong story to tell.
It was functional. I mean, it's not the thing is you're coming... I mean, from a palette cleanser point of view, even if the set didn't do it, from a story point of view, you've had this massive long arc, and then suddenly out of nowhere it's random dude who's kind of a fairy.
No, but what I'm saying, I liked the set, and I think the set told the story of the card. Like, the cards told the story of Eldraine better than the actual
I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, the story was too... I mean, this might be a question of maybe they're just really bad at telling stories, and it's not the Planeswalkers that ruin story, it's that they don't know how to not tell... Like, because we had a different focus, right? The focus was Kellen instead of random Planeswalker. And arguably it had the same kind of issue of where, yeah, cool, this is all happening, but it doesn't feel like it's happening within the set of the game.
The Kellen half was fine. It was the Will and Rowan side.
Which wasn't really happening within the set at all.
No.
You get to see both of them and then maybe a couple of story spotlight cards. Yeah. But those are 6 cards out of the entire set.
But the actual set flavor-wise was wicked. They did all the good stuff from the previous Eldraine set, i.e. Adventures.
They ratted it up much more.
And also they were a bit more cute with it, with all the candy zombies and all horrors. I know
those weren't cute. Minstrosity's awful.
Yeah, but like they went, you liked this one. What's the thing you didn't like? Okay, the Arthurian shit didn't quite hit home.
Let's get rid of that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So the next time we come back, we'll still have it, because so it doesn't corrupt the sort of identity of the plane too much, but we are going to focus on the other aspects.
The courts were very much
Which
done
is
and
great.
dusted, and we very much were looking at, let's push this much more into the fairy tale side
But
of
it
things.
still felt like those two, like you could have, maybe this is me talking out my arse because I'm remembering it wrong, but you could have had Wilds of Eldraine, Throne of Eldraine, and then Wilds of Eldraine as a 2-set block.
I would really like to see that format.
As maybe like a cube.
Yeah,
Because
that's a really cool format.
That's because I think if you look at maybe Ravnica as always the kind of litmus test for like an enduringly popular plane with lots of different sets.
Sickeningly enduring.
Every time you go back to Ravnica, they have a different flavour with it, even though you can go like, but it's wildly different. So you would say maybe like the Allegiance Guilds of, because of its like noir detective story style thing. And
so the almost the palette of the set might feel different,
but they are cohesive. You're like, okay, I appreciate it because it's different sides of the same.
I don't know
coin.
I don't know a single time apart from maybe Forecast Detain, for example, being a really good example of things that are very disparate.
Yeah.
I don't know any mechanic from a guild that doesn't work at least somewhat synergistically with the next mechanic that the guild had.
But they are distinctly different sets, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas I think with Wilds and Throne, they succeeded in a different way, which was to say it was
the aesthetic was very
it was
continual.
all still there, but it was like an evolved story.
Yeah,
like they had the adventures, they had all that kind of stuff. It was
the perfect revisit, basically.
Yeah,
this was chapter 2. We've had chapter 1. It sets the stage. It sets the stage kind of rather boringly, let's say, of where you've got all of the knights and they go and do their thing, and then it's like, yeah, but in Act 2 things get fucked up.
Yeah, things are a bit messy.
Yeah, and I'd like to, and again, this is the question of then when we go back to Act 3, what do they do with it in Act 3? And I think that Act 2 might always be the hard one to deliver. I feel like that middle one of where you go, right, here's where we start with it. That's really easy to place. Then how do we build further? What do we go deeper on? What do we take back? And what do we pull back from? And they've done that very, very well. And they just need to kind of finish on a flourish of whatever they do next with the set.
So I think, all by and large, really cool. Loved.
Very good chapter 2, and it's a very deep set. I mean, again, complexity-wise, you can complain and moan or whatever, but I mean, this is the current theme of Magic we're in, which is every card does 6,000 different things.
Yeah.
And then moving into Lost Caverns of Ixalan, again, a set that wasn't supposed to be on Ixalan.
No.
In development, and then slowly developed. Again, this is the thing of where it kind of shows of where they go mechanically. I want to build this idea, we want to build this setup, and all of these mechanics feel they fit within this flavour setting. Why don't we go back to Ixalan? Why don't we reuse it? Instead of just making up another random one? And again, people get kind of annoyed sometimes of where we don't see new sets. I guess, I don't actually know, I haven't got data for this. There's probably as many people out there that are annoyed we don't go back to the sets we've already got, as there are people annoyed we keep going back to the same sets we've already seen. But it was nice to go back to a set that we've only seen, I'm going to say once, because even though it was 2 sets, it was a block. Even though we've only seen it once, it's nice to go back and kind of give it a flip, and then it's nice for them to go, we will make the flavour of what we've done mechanically fit into this set, no matter which way we want to make it happen. And then the way they made it happen was go, well, it's just on the inside instead of the outside.
But I love,
and then they
love that.
And then they somehow stitched together. And I remember being a bit poo-poo about this when I was talking about it on the actual episode.
Yeah, you were a little bit, yeah.
Now I look at it, it's more impressive they managed to stitch a set that wasn't supposed to be from that plane into the plane. And even though there was a little bit too much, and I think we even spoke about this earlier today off Mike, of where there were certain things that just didn't feel fully fleshed out enough. And again, it's fine because it's more reason to go back there again. And you managed to weave it in that didn't make it feel... It didn't make the Dyson sphere aspect didn't feel non-diegetic to the exterior. No. It felt like it could absolutely be. It's just
you pulled the lid off.
Yeah.
If you're going to build, and this is why I think sets like the Horror House set that's going to be coming up and Murder at Karlov Manor. There you go, I got it right. I think if you build your set around infinite possibility and infinite mystery, you can be forgiven if you don't explore all of them, as long as you really land the ones you do. Let's look at the list. This is something we didn't really do last time. Let's look at the list of shit that makes up Lost Caverns of Ixalan. You have your pirates, your vampires. Yep. You have your dinosaurs. You have your... Now Quintorius is there. You've got your merfolk, right? So those are the things that sort of made up the last set. And now you have...
Fungus you can in Quistorius as being like the exploring part
of it, as it were. The
archaeology,
but now,
adventure side.
He's also now an Omen Party person.
Yep.
You've got your goblins that are in the centre of the earth instead of outside the centre
Another
of the
plane
earth.
with goblins, I didn't need them. I like it.
A second amount of goblins, because there's goblin pirates.
There's the monkey goblins and the orky goblins.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
You have your Dyson Sphere,
You got the Dyson
gods.
Sphere, yeah.
You've got not only your vampires, but now you've got bat demons.
Bat demons,
You've
yeah.
got bats that you can ride on. You've got
vampire demons who are like converted vampires.
Your fungus monsters. You've got a whole bunch of other monsters in the story, which wasn't really fleshed out.
Don't forget about the cats.
You've got the cattle.
They're not the cattle.
Oh no, what were they called?
Every time.
Malamet.
Malamet. Yeah, well done. Absolutely.
Yes, Malacat.
Malacats. Were they actually called cats?
It was one of the two of them. I've forgotten it again.
It's fine.
But you have your cat. You have your cat folk.
They're there.
You have your other new faction of humans.
And then we didn't actually get any cards of them, but technically speaking, there's even Fomori in here somewhere.
Yeah, and then you've got your alien conspiracy.
The Coin Empire
thing
going on.
That's like 4 sets worth of shit. That's 4 blocks worth of shit,
Yeah.
and they fit it into one set, and it feels like it should be there.
I guess
That's so cool.
I guess the reason it worked, right, is because because we did do 2 sets of the original Ixalan, and we got to do the breathe in, breathe out. We got to do the breathe in of this is all the stuff that's in the plane. And we get to do breathe out of this is us when we need to do even more of it. And that's what I liked about second sets is it makes the designers go, "Oh, you had a really good idea, did you?" He goes, "Yeah." It's like, do more of it then.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what do you mean I have to do more of it? It's like you have to do a whole second set of it. Are you ready? Have you got enough ideas for a second set?
And they've set up not only for future storyline with the Fomori Coin Empire, they've also set up internally
3 other things going on internally.
Torazon with the Vanguard,
and the Mycoid still going on.
So cool.
Very, very well
Shouldn't
done.
have worked. It shouldn't have worked.
No.
Eldraine, the second Eldraine visit was they've landed something really solid where it's like they took all the good stuff and went forward. The second Ixalan is they succeeded in going, here's just a whole other bunch of shit and you're going to love it.
Well, you know that all of the original stuff, and this is where I think maybe my criticism about the dinosaurs and the dinosaur names came from, is that you didn't need to shove... I mean, I guess from a mechanical point of view and a play point of view, you did need to shove another 25 random common, uncommon dinosaurs down my throat. Because that's the way that the set needs to build. You're still playing a typal set where it has all of these types supported. Somehow not pirates, but whatever. They put the ships in there anyway.
They really don't like pirates, do they?
Pirates is difficult, man. I mean, having built the pirate deck, I mean, we'll get to that in a second. But it's good to know that they can look at all the things that are already in the set, just give random generic extra bits, but then also go, but we can also add extra stuff on top because the stuff that's already there is strong enough to hold its own. And that's where I think that it was the flip from Throne of Eldraine, where they went, the Arthurian stuff wasn't good enough to stand on its own, so we've got rid of that a little bit, and we're just going to force even more on the thing that did work, the fairy tale side of things. We're going to make it like even more twee. You know, we're going to make it even more kind of not childish, but even like that kind of idea of a little bit more whimsical.
Yeah.
We're going to really force down this route. And I like the fact that both of those planes, and again, we liked both sets, so I think they both delivered really well.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that we're able to do both of those things where they go, what do we get rid of and what do we keep? And then and with certain sets of like, what do we double down on when we're trying to add more stuff on top?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm interested to see with Murders of Karlov Manor, of a Ravnica set that might not be guild based, and it is going to be because they can't help it. There's an Aurelia card, there's a Rakdos card.
Do you reckon it's going to be set in the 10th district?
I mean, like genuinely, there's going to be 10 fucking. I mean, you can't not. This is the only thing about Ravnica, right? This is why I love More of the Spark. It's the only Ravnica set where they didn't go, oh, but it's 10 different 2-colour pairs. They didn't give a fuck. They went, it's just a normal Ravnica set. It's just a set. It's just a random set on Ravnica, and I would rather it be that.
Well, if you look at the spread of like key art characters, there's like there's 2 Rakdos ones.
But it does feel very much like they're going,
weighted differently.
Here's the Selesnya card, and then here's
they have
the
to do
Dimmick,
that.
you know.
But I don't think it's weighted quite as evenly.
And let's see when it drops, because I feel like we're still at a point of where they've given us enough to show that it might just be another similar telling of a Ravnica set, which they've got right every single fucking time. So I'm not doubting it's going to be worse. But they've also given us a little enough that it could be something completely different, and these are just the same beats we normally see.
They're also doing a Cluedo style set, or Clue.
Yeah, I think that's similar to like Aftermath or the Holiday Special, of where it's like an additional set.
Yeah, but
rather
what I'm
than
saying is they can weight it differently.
Yeah, they can put exactly. So I'm holding out hope. What in general though, I feel like they were yada-yadded the old storylines. They wanted to get it out of the way. They really wanted to throw universes beyond in our face, being like, this is the new face of Magic. This is what's going to be happening. Get used to it because it's here to stay. And then they also went, but we also have to deliver the actual normal story alongside that, pretending like we're not doing all of these things. So here's some actually pretty decent story pretty decent story once we get to Rivals of Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I don't think any of the Wilds of Eldraine stuff really mattered to anything apart from introducing us to Kellen. And I think that was kind of their point. They were like, we need to introduce this character from a certain set.
Yeah.
Let's do the Palette Cleanser set. We want to go back there. People loved it. Let's make it not so crazy as it was last time, you know, in terms of power levels and stuff. I think it worked. Yeah, good. The only the only issue I have is it got shoved between September and December. Like, literally September, October, like 2 months later, and you're back in Lost Caverns. Like, I don't like Worlds of Eldraine. I had no time to take it apart. And the more complexity you put in a set, guess what, Wizards? The more time it takes for me to dissect it. And it's getting more complex and more quick. So those two things together, it's more words at more speed. That's the problem.
I suppose I'm hanging on to that one upside, which is I get to have the joy of discovering new cards in games again.
It's delightful, yeah. I'm like, what the fuck? When did that get released?
That will always be fun.
Yeah. For me, it's the fact that I only just realised that the reskins of the Walking Dead cards were cheap enough that I can finally get a Negan and his bat.
Do you know what's interesting? I don't know what those reskins are, so that'll be interesting.
Malik, the Ruthless something or other, and then it's Geese's favourite shovel is Lucille.
Oh, okay.
Which is actually great because it makes zombies. Like, it makes no, sorry, it's a lie. It makes walkers. It still makes walkers.
I was going to say that on the card.
Yeah, I'm gonna scribble that out and say it makes Gary Lineker.
Yeah, just take a Sharpie to it.
Exactly.
I Sharpie so many of my cards. Fuck you, Therese Nielsen.
So, Secret Layers, mate.
Oh, God.
Very briefly.
Fucking hell. Very briefly.
Are we up or down? There were 14 of them last year.
I'm going to say we're down from last year.
We are. We're down to 12 this year from last year.
Yeah.
Well done. You're doing well, Wizards. I mean, obviously, some of these are super drops, some of them aren't.
It's only because I haven't heard people whinge about it. So it can't be more.
It's now getting to a point of where there's so much shit released in the year anyway that the Secret Layers are just additional shit on top of the shit.
I got my very first Secret Lair this year.
Which one did you get?
I bought, with points from London, Command Fest London, I bought the Neon Dynasty one.
Yeah, I remember you saying, yeah. That's a really good one.
And that is a good one. Still didn't pay real money for it.
Nope. Okay, cool. So we've talked about all the sets that came out. We've talked about the story that came out this year. We've talked a little bit about, random stuff like card complexity. What decks did you build this year, Andy, man? Personal stuff.
Only 3 of them.
Only 3?
And they were all flavour-based, weirdly enough, in one way or another.
So wait. Pull back quickly on that. What do you mean flavour-based?
Well, I don't mean themed.
As in you didn't see a card when, that's really cool, I'm going to build a dragon deck based around, like I did with Mirim. Okay, I really miss having a dragon deck, I'm going to build a dragon deck.
So, well, I'll walk you through them then.
Yeah, please.
Because I think that might be easier. So, the first one I built this year was Wernogan Hargild. So, those are the reskins...
the Stranger Things cards, yeah?
Of the Stranger Things cards. Couldn't tell you which ones, I don't care. It's the black-white one and the blue-white one. Mate. Yeah, I don't care.
That's the reskinned Homecoming thing, because they're really bad.
I've always really liked Investigate as a mechanic, Investigate creating clues. So when it came out in Shadows over Innistrad, that was the mechanic that I really, really liked. I think Esper in general has a really strong visual identity, much like Orzhov. So
True.
So because if you look at the kind of big factions within the kind of Esper pie, other than obviously Esper, like from Esper, but you look at the Azorius, the Dimir, and the Orzhov from Ravnica, they all seem like they do sort of hang out. They're all very roby. They've all got big coats with collars.
They're roby, mate.
But do you know what I mean? Like visually, they all look like they could sort of hang out. They're just from slightly. They all look like they're into the same broad category of music, but within sort of subgenres of each. Whereas, if you had someone from the Selesnya or the Boros, they don't look like they would hang out with those other 3 guilds.
Sure, yeah. The Gruul and the Izzet definitely don't overlap red very comfortably.
Whereas I think the Esper coloured colour pairings, they do. And I think that broadens out. I've often said, I know Orzhov's my favourite colour pair, indeed my favourite faction in all of Magic. I've often said that I think black-white across the entire game has a very strong visual identity.
Dimir? Who are Dimir?
What do you mean?
Well, there's no Dimir Guild. What are you talking
about? So I really like the mechanic. I like the flavour of how it plays. And also I find that a lot of investigators and detectives in Magic are always really, really cool. Which is why when we come to Murders at Karlov Manor, I think that whilst I will get an influx of cards that may actually be sort of, I don't know if it will dilute what I'm trying to do, but it will certainly change the deck in a big way. It will actually add that stronger sense of identity. I like the fact that Innistrad and Ravnica can also sort of match up, in a sort of visual aesthetic, because they are sort of Germanic, big coat-wearing kind of, planes. So that's that deck. Really love the way it plays. It's a flicker deck that also has clue synergies and all that kind of thing. But also, yeah, I don't know. I just like those colour pairings. The next deck I built was actually months and months and months later, was Kiku, which is a black legendary.
How many? What's the converted mana cost of Kiku there?
2 mana.
And Vernog, what's the converted mana cost of Vernog there, mate?
Who is arguably the main commander of that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, how often do you play Harguild? Let's be honest.
like once every 4 or 5 games.
There
I
we
play
go.
that deck. 2 mana.
Yeah, there we go. Good.
I like my 2 mana commanders. What can I say?
Let's go look at the legends that are 2 colours and two CMC.
There are a few
and
of them, and most of them I've built. So yeah, my Kiku deck is because this was a legendary that I played in a lot of 60 card decks that I played, so I liked Assassins.
Beautiful.
Finally found a place for her, but as my mono black commander, because I had too many black cards that I was like, these are wicked cards, I just don't have space for them, because all my other black decks are very niche to what they want to do. So what does black like doing? Likes destroying shit, likes killing creatures, withering stuff. She's great, and so it just became, the flavour wise, it's like black all stars. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm doing with it. And also all my
a mono black all stars deck. So individual.
I know. Well, within our play group, there's so many of them. But also,
I mean, monocolour decks in general are very hard. If you don't do what you've done and try and stick to a theme, it's very hard to not just be, here are all the best 99 black cards for Magic, because they're going to synergize, right?
My theme is that it is about killing creatures, and then the sort of win-con condition of that is I have lots of, like, if I kill your creature, I steal it back. So it's also my version of a steal deck.
Right.
Because blue steel isn't something I like, which obviously is something that we always talk about, because that's something that you do like, hence why I don't like it.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So the fact that I have to kill it, has to go to a graveyard, and then it comes back under my control, seems like that's fair.
No, that's much more forgivable.
Yeah.
Because it's your fault you let it die. Had you not let it die, I wouldn't have had it by now.
And then I built for our Secret Santa this year, where we did
It's so pretty.
Yes, it is very cool. So I went to Berlin recently, and I bought a bunch of German packs. One of them was a collector booster from Wildsveld Drain.
Obviously, because Germanic flavour.
Yeah. I thought it fit. And I pulled a Balloona Grand Squall, which was the Team of Giant Adventure commander. Well, legendary creature that you use as a commander. And I built that as my Secret Santa deck. So I took all the adventures that I thought were A, teamer, and B, were like synergistic amongst each other. As we were saying, they're quite complex.
You cut the shit ones. That's why you can say you cut the shit
Well, no,
ones.
because some of them are good in limited, but actually don't work as part of a whole. Like, they work as their own card, but not maybe with everything else.
True. Did you play any of the ones from? Now I think about it, you must have played some from the universe
Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, they weren't all Eldraine ones, to be fair.
So I literally just thought my first one that came to my mind was Monster Manual, and I was like,
yeah, Monster Manual was
surely
in
that's
there.
in there.
Yeah. So again, so I built it around the mechanic, but it all had to be flavoured around that mechanic as well. It was incredibly focused in on that, and also I just like the idea that it was very all the showcases and stuff was very cool.
I got to sit next to the guy piloting that deck, and it was funny because every now and again I look at me like, oh, that's so cool. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, because if you do that, you can do that and do that. And he's like, I didn't even think about that. And I was like, he didn't realise that double-handed axe double strikes and doubles the power. He thought it just gave double strike and then gives the equipped creature double strike. I was like, no, it's times 4.
Well, the great thing about adventure cards in limited is that it gives you with Stomp and the
this
giant,
effect into this effect.
This effect into this effect, but that one card gives you 2 options.
Yeah.
And it scales, because if every single creature in your deck is also a utility
Also a spell, yeah.
But also because they don't necessarily synergize with each other on the spell slide. It's the adventure mechanic that synergizes. What you have,
right, so Andy's got his eyes closed while he's doing this. He's gone
goes,
full zone mode.
Because it goes. I was like, I've got 36 creatures in this deck. It's too many. And it's like, no, you fucking idiot. You have 36 creatures and utility spells,
instant / sorceries
that are also. It's also a toolbox deck.
Yeah, because you can do Grand Melee to make all of your instant sorceries cost 2 less, and all the adventures are really, really cheap. Or you can do not obviously Urza's Incubator, but say for why isn't there a card that just makes all creature spells cost 2 less? There definitely is. I'm just blanking on it. I'm 2 pints of rum deep now.
There is one that makes things.
Can't remember. Anyway, but both of those things work with that deck depending on which one you want to do. It also depends on which one you need to offset, because the cool thing about adventures is some of the adventure sides are much more expensive than the creature sides, and some of them the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very.
And she makes them cheaper.
I'm not gonna lie. That was a deck I wanted to build, and then you built it, and then I looked at it and went, I want to play that.
It's just you have an adventures deck, and instead it's not. It's like an adventures deck, so it's a keyword synergistic creature based deck that's actually spellslinger and toolkit.
And it's also kind of block. It's also block deck.
It's almost
as well.
a block deck. It's everything, baby.
Yeah,
and so
that's
it was
really
really cool. And then I got back. I didn't build this. I got back a Cody deck, which I'm actually not going to talk about now because phase 1 of the Cody deck is it was very cool.
Yeah, we should talk about. We haven't done this in a while. We should
phase
talk.
2 of the Cody.
We should
deck.
talk about decks we should start to work, because we haven't talked about it, I don't think, since we did the fucking build challenge when I built the Princess
Many
Mononoke
years
deck,
ago,
and
yeah.
you did the
Eldritch
Horror culty kind of deck.
Yeah.
With Volrath. Yeah, we probably should do another one of those soon.
Volrath, no.
The Shapeshifter, wasn't it? Not Shapeshifter.
No.
Urtai?
Urtai,
Yeah,
first one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Corrupted. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
I'm going
cool.
to talk about my Cody deck in a future episode, because when I get the ball rolling on the suggestion, it's already out on Twitter, but yeah, it's going to be very cool.
So I think, what have I done? I've got 1, 2... Technically 10 this year, which is funny
Wow, that
because...
beats my 3.
Well, the thing is, so I went through a big slump. I genuinely had a moment once, and it happens that we've got one of the guys that plays in our play group. I actually know who listens to this, so hi, John. Not big ginger cunt John, the other one, the one who's now back from Jordan.
Who built my Cody deck?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There was a day where we were going to be playing with him, and he plays to a higher standard and builds to a higher standard than your average Commander Magic the Gathering playing card game player.
He's very, very good.
And you know, when you like, I remember looking through my collection. My collection isn't like my suite, shall I say, isn't small. It's like, you know, a good like 30 decks by this point. And I played very recently a long day, and there was a couple of decks that I would typically go to as my go-tos are absolutely always going to do the thing they want to do decks. I didn't want to play any of those because I played them recently, and I just had such a moment of like, is it like ennui, of where I looked at all my decks and went, oh, I don't even care. Why am I playing this game for? Why have I built these decks? None of them do anything. I don't care about them. I don't know what had happened, but I was in a slump.
Well, I had the similar feeling at the start of this year. Yeah.
And that slump projected in not only into my playing, but also into my building. I didn't want to build anything. In fact, if anything, I felt like there was so much shit coming out that I was like, I don't even care about this stuff coming out.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
And I don't know what caused it, and I don't know what fixed it. Oh, actually, that's a lie. I don't know exactly what fixed it, but it wasn't necessarily... I didn't know that's what the thing that was going to fix it was, and it's permeated beyond that. And that's that I've recently got Isla into Magic, who's the girlfriend. And I try and do this with every one of my partners, because it's a very big and important part of my life, and this is a person who's very important in my life, and also they're the person I'm going to spend a lot of my time with, so we might as well spend a lot of the time playing Magic.
And it's now also someone I spend a lot of my time with, I guess.
Yeah. You know, like, it kind of... Yeah, sorry. Because now she's started coming on...
It's a good job I like her.
Yeah, right? It's a good thing she's lovely.
Insufferable if it wasn't.
And this was the year of Magic for her, because she's a massive fan of Doctor Who, a massive fan of Lord of the Rings, and really likes fairy tales.
We share a tattoo.
So we've got we had Eldraine, Lord of the Rings, and Doctor Who all come out within like a 3-month period. So for Ida, there was so many cards I could just send her way, and even though she didn't really know the game very well, I was like, oh my god, that's so cool.
She's a very good Magic player.
She is, and it sparked a lot of it sparked that build kind of thing with me, and I built probably one of the best decks I've built ever this year, and that was Arwen, Mortal Queen.
Deck.
That deck is insane. It turns out giving all of your stuff indestructible and lifelink is really, really strong.
Just fucking like, oh yeah, that's a shield counter, that's another shield counter, this is
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah, like once you start getting because this is the thing, like it wasn't really possible until this year, but because of all that will be one and March of the Machine, there is so much more Selesnya proliferate effects as well. And we got the Guardian Apparition that came in War of the Spark, which is essentially Thrumming-Bird 2.0. Even cards like that, like this deck's crazy strong. And what I realised is that I built a load of decks for myself to try and get myself out of the funk. And they are what I like to call linear one-note decks. I built a Urabrask deck, which is just Storm.
Yep.
And I wanted a mono-red deck that wasn't just Goblins. So instead of going Goblin Storm, I went just normal Storm.
Yes.
And God, I hate it. And I'm not going to take it apart because again, there are certain decks that are very one-note that you can't use any of the cards that are in that deck.
The cards do that thing.
In any other deck. So you might as well keep that deck together because you're not taking anything out. I think when I did this before with Krenko, the only card I've taken out in the last few years to put in another deck was Dockside Extortionist, because it doesn't the least important part of that card is that it's a goblin.
Yeah, sure.
You know? And so it could have gone into any other decks. I put it in Ginny Fakes, it makes a bunch of tokens, and it makes a bunch of cats. Fantastic, awesome, much more flavourful. Urabrask is just a Storm deck that has had very success. It's basically just Kakar, but without all the extra colours and the fun things. And the cards look worse because they're not the alternate artwork stuffs. I then also built Nira because I wanted to build an Izzet deck that didn't do the normal Izzet things. So I tried to build almost a spell polymorph deck of where you go, oh, I played this 1-drop, but then it polymorphs into a 10-drop. And so the deck played, I think I played like 6 or 7, maybe even less. I maybe played like 4 or 5 games. Of those 4 or 5 games, 2 of them I've not ramped out and done anything because it's a 6-drop commander in Izzet. The other 3 games, I've turned Brainstorms into Jin-Taxius
Yes,
is
yes.
I've doubled the trigger for Jin-Taxius with a Harmonic Prodigy. So instead of drawing 7 cards at my end of turn, I draw 14, and then because I have a Niv Mizzet in play, it deals that much damage, but doubled up from Harmonic. You know when you have like those games where you look at your cards and go, what the fuck have I built? But there's no reason it should have worked, and so it didn't work, and it's a 1-note. And so I look at Nira and I'm like, well, I don't want to play that deck, because either it does nothing or it does everything.
Yeah.
Same thing with Urabrasu, either it does nothing or it does everything. I built a Rowan deck, you know, Scholar of Sparks, and guess what that does? Or everything. Or nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm building 1-note decks for myself that, if anything, that's I think what kind of ruined it for me. Is I was building 1-note decks that weren't really fun. Like, they were fun to build, but they weren't fun to play. Because they were only ever doing one thing or not doing one thing. And from a build point of view, it was always great to go like, okay, so how many combo enablers do I need? How many combo payoffs do I need? How much protection do I need to put in there? And if it was like something I was playing this deck like every other day, and slowly but surely building it into something that's resilient and I can play consistently and it always is going to do the thing, fine. But because I was only playing every now and again, I was theory crafting a bunch, but not practicing a bunch. And it was kind of like my Mexico experience of where I built all of these really cool decks, the Ishin effect, as I like to call it. I built Ishin in theory, in 3 different ways. Go wide, go tall, and then also have a stacks deck. And even now, I really struggle to enjoy playing him because there's so many other cards I could be playing that I'm not focused on the cards that I am playing, enjoying playing it for itself.
Yeah.
And I kind of buried myself within this 1-note deck building philosophy. And it was quite nice to then have someone else to build for, because it put everything that I was building for on a different axis. I'm not building it for power or to do a certain thing or because this commander's cool. I was building because I was like, I need to make a fairy deck.
Yeah, a fun fairy deck that you can play and will always do fairy things.
So I was like, fuck it, I've always wanted to build a Widwin the Biting Gale deck. It's a really cool artwork. I've wanted to build it for years. I actually finally get to build it. I was like, well, let's do a flash deck. We're not going to make it just a fairy deck. We're going to make a flash deck. And then because the flash deck plays in response, giving that to a newbie, shockingly, isn't the best thing to do in the world.
Is difficult.
So then I was like, okay, well, what's the best way to dial back on that? Oh, let's make a tribal deck. Or, sorry, typal deck. Let's make an Oberyn. That's not Oberyn. That's literally from
Midsummer Night's Dream.
The Duke of Splendor. The one that was from the main commander set. The one where you lose a life and draw. Yeah, you lose a life and draw a card whenever a fairy you control dies.
Fairyman.
So I built a typal fairy deck, which was great because I had all of these other cards that I couldn't fit into Dimir. It was another Dimir deck. It wasn't just Steal Your Girl stuff because it was nice to have something else to build into. So between that, Arwen, and then also building upgrading the Pirates precon, I've actually done a lot of building this year. So I had to build the 2 fairy decks, one that was flash, one that was fairies, because I can actually keep those 2 separate. One of those is more for me now, and I get to play this cool flash deck that I've always wanted to build, whilst also having a fairy deck for the girlfriend to play that isn't too complicated. I've got an Arwen deck playing Selesnya in a way that I've never thought about playing Selesnya before, playing Selesnya like how Simic usually plays. And I had a Simic deck that used to do the same thing, but the Selesnya deck's way more interesting and important. And these are like way more fun than these 1-note decks I built for myself. And I've only just today, like literally today, sleeved up a Radagast deck. And that seems way more fun because it's just generic magic stuff.
Yeah.
It's not, I need to do this one thing and do this one thing only. And I feel like that's probably what ruined it for me, is a lot of the decks that I've built over the last couple of years have been very much, I want to do this one thing. And if I don't do this one thing, the deck isn't working. And that linearity, or should I say that binary aspect of deck building, is really damaging because that's what CDH is. CDH is, I do this one thing every game. And I've got all of the interaction and the ramp to build me up and to do it every game. And then it's just a challenge of whether I can or can't. Whereas I feel like the difference between casual and competitive is casual should be, I could do one of many things.
Yeah.
Yes, I want the deck to do this one thing, but along the route there are other directions I can take. There is nothing worse than having your game plan be shut off by a random piece of exile removal. Or having a Bojuka Bog ruin your day. Like, build with diversity, don't build with singularity, because unfortunately there is a foil to everything in this game. And when you find that foil, your deck doesn't do anything anymore, and you've wasted 3 months and £20. It's usually more than that. You've wasted, a lot of time and money on something that isn't actually going to work. So yeah, 10 decks built this year, and only like 1 or 2 of them I'm actually really fucking happy with, and neither of them were for me. So that's a lesson for next year. Apart from the Secret Santa deck, fucking Rule 0 whatever the fuck you want and build a deck out of it is so much fun. I built an Urza and Mishra deck, the Prodigy, Excavation Prodigy and Power Stone Prodigy.
Yeah.
Those 2.
The 2 uncommon
Oh
boys.
my god, so much fun.
Yeah, very cool.
And the two of them together do feel just a little bit powerful, because you're generating now mana and then mana, and generating now mana and then mana, and which colours that don't normally do so, is quite strong.
Yeah.
But then it's also just an artifact deck, so Vandal Blast really fucks you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so good year of building. Quite happy. Regained my gumption. I don't think there's anything in Markov Manor that Karlov Manor. Fucking stupid. And there's nothing in Karlov Manor right now that jumps out to me. But we're only like 5% through the set. So
Oh fucking hell! Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
I'm not even there yet. But yeah, as a year, I think I finished. I started the year looking, and I don't know actually. I probably have to go back and read listen to the episode. I don't know what my opinions going into this year was. I think I was just very excited to see the end of the Phyrexian arc. I think I was very excited to see how they would deliver such important UBs, Universes Beyonds. And then it was also just going to be kind of nice to go back to the sets that we've already seen before. And I think although 3 of those things have kind of dropped exactly how I wanted them to, they did just well enough closing out the Phyrexian arc that I feel happy, even though you can never be 100% happy with anything that WotC does, because, you know, we're Magic the Gathering players and we hate everything. I feel like the UBs was a little bit too focused on, but next year it's not going to be the focus, so they'll learn from that. And then I feel like the new sets in the Omen Path arc, it's really cool. It's a lot to get your teeth into. I just want the complexity to dial back a little bit, not for my sake, but for the sake of the game. I can keep up with it fine. But it's in like, I can keep up with it, but it's exhausting. Like, I don't want a game to be more complicated for the sake of it. Even if I can keep up with it, it's still tiring. It's still a lot to grok. It's still a lot of, yada, yada, yada. I get 3 lines down, I don't care anymore. And then I miss out on this really cool interaction. I want Magic to get more succinct, because I think Magic is best when it's succinct. And just because you can be more complicated and do anything you want with this game doesn't mean you have to. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Right. I think we've got time for one more thing.
I like one more thing.
And I know we spoke about, like, oh, what's our favourite cards of the year? What's our most hated cards of the year? Blah, 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 blah. I think we've already spoken about a lot of the things that we like and dislike. I'm just going to ask you one question. Before we recorded, I was on the train down to here, your place, to record. And I said, I've got a card that I've thought about every day since it got released from this year.
You don't like.
That I despise with every fibre of my fucking being from a flavour perspective. Name that card.
Have you mentioned it before?
Yes.
Fuck.
It's a reprint.
It's a reprint?
From a set this year.
What set was it reprinted in?
Oh, no.
I know that's a big clue, but like, there's so many cards, just tell me.
March of the Machine.
A reprint in March of the Machine that you did. Oh, is it Negate? Yes! We know. I love
fucking
you.
hate this card.
I love that I managed to get that.
I hate this card.
Oh, it's so true.
Oh my god.
This is indicative of exactly why I hate their handling of the story, because of what they've done in this card shows exactly how much care they care about the story. They're like, whatever, they'll take it, they'll shovel it into their eyes, they'll read it, and they'll move on to the next set.
What's negating about it?
It doesn't make any sense. It's reversion. How does his armour go back to what it was before?
Right, for those of you who don't know.
Is this time magic? What is it?
This is the card, the Story Spotlight card that depicts Ajani Goldmane.
I can't believe I got it.
being changed back from his Phyrexian fleshy Elesh Norn armour into his regular armour on the artwork.
Elesh Norn.
Elesh Norn armour. And the flavour text is, Teferi gave them time, Khan gave them a chance, but it was Malira who paid the ultimate price to free Ajani from the Phyrexia's grasp. Now,
that flavour text in of itself is very Avacyn's, Ancient Grudge, Avacyn's Collar-esque.
Yeah.
Right? It's very just on the nose.
Yeah, like, fucking stupid. Whatever. I'm sorry, Vico Menzies. I'm so sorry. I don't like saying things about artwork that's negative, because art is very subjective. This is not for me. Right. But also, so, like, even if the artwork, depicts him, like, being half and half with the kind of, sort of turquoise glow of the fucking gold, whatever they call it, the hex gold. Yeah. Is that Malira's magic?
Yeah, what's going on there? Is it justified at all?
Even if even if this was a representation of the magic rather than how the magic actually worked, which in itself is weird. If you compare this to another card that was a reprint from a set this year, i.e. Thrill of Possibility.
Oh my god, right? Night and fucking day.
That is the same thing in reverse, where it shows Nahiri turning into a Phyrexian in an abstract way with a reprint. Thrill of Possibility is almost a perfect flavour magic card.
Yes!
So why is it so fucking wrong with Negate? I've thought about this card every day for a year.
It's so much, man.
And I hope in 2024
even when they
get it.
Even in the story, they can't really justify it properly. They just go yada yada yada. And the thing is, you know, when you need I need a card to show me what's happening in the story right now to make me feel like it's actually making sense, and it made less sense.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense. It's very much like that. it feels like Disney where they hand wave and magic happens and things just goes back to the way it was. You've just had a story about time magic and how time works and how you and you just it just looks like he goes la 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 sparkle sparkle everything's normal again. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't work.
Hopefully I'll let go of this hate in the new year.
No, I love that. I genuinely had no idea. And then managed very quickly to figure out exactly what it was. Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, it's funny because there was a mention, right, of like flavour highlight, flavour lowlight. Too much. There was too much this year. And I would have told you, as it happened, that my flavour highlight for the year would have been the Doctor Who set. Now, don't even think that anymore.
Oh, wow.
Don't even think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that. I still think it's a fantastic product. I still think even, I don't even mean necessarily in isolation it's a fantastic product. I think it's a genuinely fantastic product. I just think that they're trying too hard. Dial back a little, please.
Yeah. Well,
that was as far as we needed to go for a bit.
Here's to 2024, a simpler year.
Yeah, just exactly. A year of just normal stuff, please.
All right, I think we're overrunning for final thoughts. I guess our hearts go out to all the Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro employees that have been a victim of corporate greed. Look, capitalism is the engine that drives a lot of our Western society, but this shit is bullcrap.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm kind of glad we don't make money off of this game.
No. Fuck Hasbro.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that was enough. I'm just gonna double check my quick notes thing if there was anything else I needed to say apart from that. Absolutely.
We're at an hour 40.
No. Yeah. No. I'm just joking. If there's, I just want a little single line of anything, but no, all the vitriol came out already.
Lovely.
Nice.
Well, in that case, then, thank you so much for listening, everyone. We hope you all have a fantastic new year and a happy holiday season. This has been Magic the Flavouring.
We'll see you next year.